What a picture. Hello and welcome to Crushing Comics. This is the comics review and trades review show. It's a review show, basically, from the Comic Crush. I'm your host, Paul, as always, and I'm here with Liz. Liz, as you know, will have joined me before on all our Marvel after shows. So before we start, we've got a bunch of new subscribers and things, and I just want to kind of tell you guys who we are. So as I said, I'm Paul, this is Liz. And we kind of met when Liz was working at Orbital Comics in London, God, about 10, 11 years ago now. Quite a long time ago. I'm always shocked when I realise how long it's been, Liz. I cry with both tears of joy and a little bit of sadness too.
Every night, Paul. Every night.
Yeah. So, Liz, you kind of started out working at Orbital Comics, and as I said, that's where we met. But you have like a whole ton of geeky interests. Obviously, tell folks at home what you're into.
I am a connoisseur of many geeky things. But yeah, I think mostly comics these days. I mean, that's been my passion for many a year, and the thing that you and I love to dissect and argue about and pour over in a variety of different formats. This isn't our first rodeo. We've been doing podcasts together for how many years?
A few now.
Yeah, quite a few. I think our first recorded podcast session was, I want to say it was the Doctor Strange movie in 2016, right?
Yeah, it's either that. Yes, it was the Doctor Strange movie. We did a very small stint on someone else's show, on another show for Orbital, but it was someone else's kind of podcast talking about X-Men Apocalypse, I believe.
First,
I think it was that. It was that, and then we did Doctor Strange, and then Rogue One. I don't know where those podcasts are anymore.
I think those have been lost in the ether, but which is too bad. But I think
or the best news ever, depending on which way you talk.
Right? Yeah. But and we so most of our podcasts together have been about comics based film and TV.
Yeah,
that's our little wheelhouse.
We kind of our interests intersect really nicely there. I'm a big movie watcher, or I was until I started this website, and now I don't get any time to watch movies anymore unless they've got people with capes in them. So yeah, and we started doing that. We've now moved on to doing some comic stuff as well, which we've done a little bit of before. But yeah, once I started the website, that's where we were going, into the Comic Crush, into weekly comics, trade paperbacks, all of which we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about some trades. We're going to talk about some new single issues. We are going to talk about some comic book movie stuff. We're going to try and cover the gamut, really. And there's going to be some exhibitions stuff about things happening in London. I just have to say up front that I buy all my comics at Gosh Comics. They're a really great store in London. Definitely worth checking out. They do mail order if you're, not quite ready to get out there and head into the shops yet. I completely get that. Liz, where are you buying your comics right now? Because we should say Liz is in the United States, if for those of you that haven't been keeping up with us.
Well, at the moment, I am buying my comics at my local shop, which is That's Entertainment in Worcester, Mass. It is a really big, awesome shop. They are Eisner Award-winning shop. Way back when, I think they got an Eisner. But they completely deserve it. It's a really nice shop. It has a really great selection. If you happen to be in anywhere near Worcester, Massachusetts, I highly advise stopping in and checking them out.
I'm actually hoping to be in Worcester, Massachusetts at some point, Liz. But I'm waiting for you to move back here first. So I can say, look, I tried. I just missed you. I'm just kidding.
You just missed me so much. I know.
So today we are going to talk about in the very first part of the show, we're going to talk about some new comic releases. Just a couple for you. Wonder Girl from DC's new Infinite Frontier line, which is kind of their main universe right now. And Shang Chi #1. This is the second volume of Shang Chi. We're also going to talk about the first volume of Shang Chi in the trade section, and Spy Island in the trade section as well. So, Liz, should we kick off with Wonder Girl?
Yeah, let's talk about Wonder Girl.
I'm gonna debag my copy here because I might need to take a look at it again. Now, I vaguely knew a little about Wonder Girl. There's the comic, guys. So you can see. I think you can probably just see that there.
Yep, nice cover there.
It is a nice cover. The art and writing are by Joel Jones, who came off a really great run of Catwoman. I want to say in 2019, maybe 2018, late 2018.
No, yeah, either somewhere.
So I think she did the first 12 issues. Since then, Ram V's taking over with Federica Blanco, I want to say. But Joe Jones is back here doing both writing and art. Her art is amazing. Like,
just stunning. Honestly.
I don't know what you'd call the style really, but she's got this really kind of dynamic, fine style. And it's particularly like, I mean, I love her faces. They're just amazing. I'm like, I know it's kind of
she's really great with expressions, like just little micro expressions in her characters. Her panels are just like so fluid. Her storytelling is so strong. I mean, like really, it was a really fun issue. It was a really well written issue. I enjoyed, all of the dialogue, but the sort of star aspect of this series is the art.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of always that weird thing, and I'm sure I've said this a million times before, and I'm sure I'll say it at least once every couple of episodes. You never know. Do you enjoy this comic because it's a well-written comic, or do you enjoy it because it's a well-written comic with really good art? It's always kind of impossible to pinpoint that, I guess. This is a mix of both. We kind of hop locations between Brazil, where Yara Flores is from, Themyscira, and some places I haven't seen. I hope I'm saying these correctly. Bana McDowell, and of course Mount Olympus, that I can pronounce just fine.
I wasn't sure about Bana McDowell as well.
It's
totally wrong, but we'll stick with that for now. Anybody who happens to be watching and knows, please feel free to correct us.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, Paul, but I am not that fluent in Wonder Woman. Like, it is not a corner of the DC universe that is an area of expertise of mine. My Wonder Woman reading is like, I would say I have like, okay basis with the character, but as far as like getting into, the world of it, there are characters and places that I'm not familiar with in this issue. And I don't think it's going to matter. I didn't feel alienated by it, but I did feel like, oh, okay, I don't really know this place or this character very well. And as an entry point, I think there's a good chance that this will be a nice way for me to find out. But for example, I didn't even read the future state issues with Yara, so this is my introduction to Yara, and it's perfect. It's a really good introduction to Yara, because as far as what I know about the future state issues is her in the future as a fully realized Wonder Woman, whereas this is, it's before she has an inkling that she has anything to do with the Amazons. So it's a very good introductory point if you haven't read the future state issues, which a lot of people really latched onto this character and loved her from the future state issues. And
like literally, there was a time when the future state stuff was coming out that you could not move online for pictures of Yara Flor, just everywhere. I think she's an interesting character. I would have loved to have read the future state stuff. Unfortunately, I opted out of all of that just because, publishers got to make money, writers and artists got to make money. I completely appreciate that. But like a lot of the first issues were $8 an issue.
Yeah,
it was sort of, beginning of the year, just after Christmas. No one's got money just after Christmas. And I just could not justify getting those issues and maybe latching onto a series that early into the year for that amount of money. Sorry, DC, but I think you kind of might have been better off scaling back a bit and doing the issues at a reasonable price. I feel bad that I missed it, really. I want to get the trades once they come out. I think they're kind of starting maybe next week, that the sort of first trades are going to come out. They're kicking off with the John Ridley Batman stuff. And then the Wonder Girl stuff is coming probably shortly after. I mean, if they timed it right, I guess Wonder Girl or the future state Wonder Woman stuff will be out next week to kind of time with this nicely. If not already. If I've got the dates wrong, I am sorry, guys. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful looking issue. I like the writing. I don't get it because of the future state stuff, personally.
Well, what don't we get?
Just who she is and what's happening.
No, I don't think like the future state stuff. It happens like far in the future for her.
Yeah.
So this is I mean, you don't need to get anything. I don't think about the future state stuff from this. I think it's like literally this is just an introduction to her character and her self-discovery, finding out that she has powers because she's sort of been adopted by her aunt and uncle living in the Midwest, and is taking a trip back to Brazil to discover her roots. And she clearly doesn't remember her history as an Amazon, and her entering Brazil is what sets off alarm bells in sort of the wider Wonder Woman universe. Somehow it seems though she was prophesized to go back, and as soon as she does, all of these little pings seem to be happening in, Mount Olympus and Banamigdal and Themyscira.
And I do love the scene where she's kind of talks the old lady to death getting off the plane. Like that was great. She's giving her a life story.
I thought that was a funny scene because also it kind of shows you like a little character trait about her that she's like, she's not necessarily all that heroic yet. Like she's a little bit self-absorbed because she's like prattling away at this little old lady, and you see these couple of panels where this little old lady is like hunched over carrying these heavy bags, and she's just like trouncing off in front of her, like still chattering away. So it's like, oh, okay. I found that kind of charming in a way, even though it's like, okay, so she's got character flaws,
but it's kind of an interesting beginning. I don't know. I think I probably want to kind of dive into a couple of more issues with this and see how we go, because it's one of those things with this. You're guaranteed to get an arc of beautiful looking issues.
Yeah, I mean, and
they're just
really sort of Obviously, the bulk of credit goes to Joelle Jones for like her stunning art style, but also you got to mention Jordi Belair as her her colorist and collaborator, because she is just like, and they've worked together before, and they obviously collaborate really, really well. But Jordi Belair just kills it every time, and certainly here.
I'm sure she's probably still the busiest colorist in the business, because there was a time when it was like, it just felt like 60% of books had her name on.
Yeah.
And they all looked fantastic. I mean, for me, the killer standout image was the gorgeous final image in the book where she's kind of trapped under the ocean with the kind of mythical creature. Just absolutely stunning. I think if you're a fan of really gorgeous books, really gorgeous artwork, then this is definitely going to be top of your list for this week. If you haven't got it already, you need to be picking it up this weekend.
It's
not
just like absolutely stunningly beautiful art.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for my own purposes, I need to know a bit more about this, where the character kind of ends up, to kind of get where she's come from. It's that weird thing where you've kind of got to read the end of the journey or before you read the beginning,
I think it certainly wouldn't hurt to read the future state stuff, but I think that this is a really nice introductory point, and I don't think you have to read the future state stuff at all to read this. I think it's a really nice introduction to the character. I'm like, I'm interested in what's going to happen to her, issue 2 and onward. So I recommend, if you're on the fence about picking it up, I would say pick it up.
Yeah. In the box that I am currently resting my feet on, there is the 2 Infinite Frontier, the sort of kickoff specials. I can't remember what they're called now, but I haven't even read those because they've been out of Metal. I've just finished Metal. There's a nice review of that on the website if anyone wants to go and take a look at that. Or Death Metal, I should say. And it's all kind of spinning out of that. And I think the general idea with this is that they are bringing all their multiverses into a kind of alignment so that you can have several versions of a character existing at once, and it's all canon,
right?
Rather than being like Elseworlds where you can kind of go, oh well, that isn't canon, and then the kind of differences of the character become more palatable for people. I think the general idea is they're kind of embracing that kind of multiversal approach, and it also means that you're kind of getting characters from different periods in their lives existing at the same time, from the looks of it. So I'm interested to see what that's going to do. Again, how much I'll be diving in, I don't know, because of just the general cost of commentary. But I certainly recommend this. So that I got from Gosh. Liz picked hers up at That's Entertainment. You can shop at either of those stores and find it there. Oh, I lost you for a second there.
Yep, you're back.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I'm plugged into the internet, so I'm very annoyed that happened. So should we talk about Shang-Chi next?
Yes.
So I don't know if you got to read. We will be talking about the preceding volume to this in the trade section. I don't know if you got to read that at all.
I did not.
Right. So same team, Jin Luen Yang, DK Ruan. This has Fiona Farrell on colours, and we've also got Travis Langham on letters. Now, this I kind of dropped into straight away because I kind of read both back to back.
Right.
So that was a bit of a difference for me. Now, I don't know if I enjoyed it more because I did that. So can I ask you how you found this issue first?
Well, okay. So from what I understand, basically this does pick up from the end of that miniseries that you read, and I haven't. But to be honest, I found it so easy to read. It really feels like and I think that's really cool because it just summed everything up really nicely. But it just feels like like a sort of fully realized relationships between him and his sister. You get the sense that like the writer has a really strong grasp on this character, and it was just a really easy, pleasant read. I've really never read a lot of Shang-Chi, and my experience with the character has only been when he pops up in other things that I'm already reading. And so I found this issue to be like a real breath of fresh air, because I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be maybe a little bit of work for me to kind of get into his character, and it wasn't the case at all. What I really liked, I thought it was just like a lot of fun, snappy dialogue, like a really kind of humorous like brother sister relationship, that you can kind of immediately just kind of identify with that, and you pick up all the major plot points that need that are kind of in play very smoothly. It's like not there is like kind of an exposition block at the beginning of the comic that kind of tells you what you need to know, but even if you didn't read that, I think you would get it from the issue. Basically that Shang-Chi has now sort of commandeered his father's 5-weapon society and turned it into, or is trying to turn it into a force for good rather than evil. His father had been, doing all these illegal dealings through the 5 weapons. It sounds like drugs, weapons, that sort of thing. And so he's trying to reclaim that and reinvent the mantle by, leading his siblings to, sort of vanquish the crime that his father was propagating, basically.
Yeah. Well, like pretty much spot on. He's now the reluctant leader of the 5 weapons, the supreme commander, as Esme keeps calling him, much to his chagrin. But it's not a position he wanted. So the first volume which we'll talk about in a moment, is kind of about him trying to rid himself of those connections and move on with his life. I really enjoyed this. It was a really nice. It gives you that kind of sitcom-y setup straight away. Where he's trying to have a normal life, trying to just hang out, and be on a date. Except that, of course, he's got the annoying little sister messaging him, and then the omnipresent threat of violence hanging over his head. And you get monsters too, which is always a bonus for me. I love a good monster show in comics and TV and stuff. Plus, bonus Spider-Man appearance.
Yeah, so they're sort of billing this as like Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe.
Yeah,
it's this issue featured Spider-Man. Which Gene Luen Yang, he writes a good Spider-Man. Like Peter was totally spot on. And Spider-Man, basically there's this like this it's not a serum, but it's like a root, this Yeren root that turns people into monsters, and Spider-Man gets slammed in the face with the root and turns into a monster, and they have to fight. So something tells me that the versus the Marvel Universe, the next issue is going to feature Captain America somehow or other. He's probably going to have to fight Captain America, and so on.
I think his main deal is trying to keep the fact that he's now running the 5 weapons from people, because I'm assuming it's a group, not knowing much about Shang-Chi like yourself, I'm assuming it's a group that a lot of the other Marvel characters have had run-ins with in the past as well. He's trying to kind of keep it quiet that he's now taken that group over. But I like this idea of trying to repurpose the legacy of that.
Right. Right. And like, but there is a moment like, that was kind of a little standout moment for me when Spider-Man asks him like, well, are you still one of us? And he doesn't answer, and I think maybe there is some part of him that's like, oh, am I getting into something that I shouldn't be getting into? So yeah, I thought I really liked his internal struggle with the fact that he is now like the supreme commander of this 5-weapon society, because it certainly had been like a force for bad for a long time, and his siblings had been sort of under the thrall of it as well. And so he's like, by taking over it, he is trying to repurpose it for good, but like like anything else is like perhaps he's afraid that it's going to corrupt him.
Sure. And I think obviously you're dealing with a bunch of extremely skilled martial artists who have up until now been, as you say, in the thrall of that organization. Sorry, a bit uncomfortable there. In the thrall of that organization, and are used to being criminals effectively. But it does, I think it then opens the door to some great drama. I love the kind of tiny moments in this. I love the little kind of bow that Spidey and Shang-Chi give each other when they meet. I thought that was a great little touch.
Yeah. I love the mention of the training that he gave Peter during Spider Island. Peter sort of lost his spider sense, because I had almost forgotten about that. And then I was like, oh yeah, they do have this relationship, and yeah, it was a really nice little moment.
I only really know Shang-Chi from years ago. There used to be in the UK an Action Force comic, which was kind of the big Marvel UK style, the magazine kind of format. And that had, I'm pretty sure they would often have a Shang-Chi backup in some of those, which were reprints of some of the older Marvel stuff from the 70s and 80s. But they also did tie it in one issue with Action Force somehow. Like they kind of, like he taught Snake Eyes or something. G.I. Joe. Sorry, when I say Action Force, I of course mean G.I. Joe for the American audiences. But over here, it was called Action Force. And that was great. And I remember being really impressed with the character then. But he's not a character I've managed to kind of follow up on, largely because a lot of the stuff was unavailable for years. And they did start reprinting it a few years back. That kind of since stopped. It's now being kind of reprinted again. I think there is a Panini edition of, those Marvel Definitive kind of collections they do, where they'll do like the first issues of a bunch of stories and select key shorts and things like that. So that is either out now or it's coming really soon, because that's on the kind of previews lists and reviews list right now. So I hope I'm going to be reviewing that at some time in the future, in the next couple of weeks, I hope. So do look out for that. But yeah, I mean, I like this. I think it's a series. I like this idea of doing interconnected miniseries, which is it's something they're doing with a few characters right now. It's also the same for Black Widow.
Yeah, I think
was
kind of, there's something to be said for that, because a lot of times people will drop off of an ongoing after a certain point, and but if you just have a mini series, that is kind of self-contained but leaves threads to kind of carry on, I think it's a way to kind of keep going with a story without worrying about losing too much readership along the way, because a lot of people are more inclined to sign on for, a mini series of, 6 issues, for example, as an investment, than they would be to say, well, yeah, I'll just keep infinitely buying this comic. It's a little easier to get readers to take chances when it comes to minis.
And I think and again, I'm not trying to speak out of turn or because I just don't know for a fact. But I suspect the reason why the Black Widow series is kind of ongoing at the moment is because there's been so many delays in the movie, and they were kind of expecting it to kind of bridge. Because, you know, just doing the math on this, if this runs for 5 issues, there's the cover, by the way, guys. If this runs for 5 issues, it'll end roughly around the time the movie's coming out. Which I think is quite nicely timed. So the movie's out in September. I really enjoyed this. I think I would like to see where it goes. I really like Jen Luan's writing. Jen Luan Yang's writing. He wrote the Superman Smashes the Klan, I believe.
Oh, right.
Which was, you know, one of the best things I read last year. I did a really nice review of that on the site. So he's worth kind of digging into as a writer. He's not a writer I'd heard of before, but I believe he's written quite a lot of stuff before. So I would definitely kind of check him out, and I need to kind of take a day and dig around and see what he's written, and try and track down some more of his stuff, because he's a really good writer. I like the kind of snap and fun.
Really snappy, fun dialogue. Like, you know, it was some kind of, like, you know, really genuinely funny moments. And I will definitely seek out more of his stuff. Yeah,
I think I will too. We're going to move on to trades now, just briefly. Staying with Shang Chi though, because we have this. Where are we? Which is Brothers and Sisters, which is volume 1 of this story. Now, this has Shang-Chi seemingly kind of out of the superhero business at the beginning. He's working in a baker's for this sort of elderly Chinese lady. She loves him because he's got, as she says, superhero muscles, and that brings him more business. And he's basically like kind of doing deliveries, baking buns, and just, you know, perfectly happy. But elsewhere in the world, his sister, who's known as Commander Hammer, has kind of taken over running of the 5 weapons, but she's done it by murdering the current leader. So she intends to kind of seize the kind of control of the 5 weapons. However, the spirit of Shang-Chi's dead father, who apparently Shang-Chi murdered years before, makes a selection of the House of the Hand, which is Shang-Chi. So he's kind of chosen him to be the leader from beyond the grave. And this becomes like this kind of voyage of discovery for Shang-Chi. But what he's ultimately trying to do is shed the kind of 5 weapons and remain as a sort of hero, but he keeps kind of getting dragged back into this thing. And it's just got some really nice moments. I mean, when he finally comes face to face with his sister, instead of fighting, they have dinner, and it's beautiful. But of course, you know, it turns ugly eventually. But it's like it's been wonderfully done. It's not as much kind of snap and fun as the follow-on series, which we've just talked about. But you kind of realize this is all to set up the world that the character is now. The kind of legacy of the character plays out, and how they're going to incorporate all this stuff from a couple of decades, or, you know, 3 or 4 decades of character history into this modern version. There are some really nice touches in this. At the beginning, we see Fin Fang Foom, and that was great. I suspect Fin Fang Foom's going to make an appearance in.
Really?
I think they're going to go with the dragon.
Wow.
And also, There is mention of Baron Harkness. He pops up in some flashback sequences in the 1900s. So I'm assuming that's Agatha Harkness's father. There's certainly a family similarity.
Right. I don't know if it's father or brother. I can't. Can't recall. But
so he pops up. There's some good stuff in this, but it kind of is that, you know, a lot happens in this one, and I think it's kind of that difficult thing of them kind of being tasked, you know, Yang and Ruan being tasked with setting up an entire world in you know, just 5 issues. It is a tough thing to do. It was a lot of fun though, so I'm going to say grab that if you can. Shang-Chi Volume 1, brothers and sisters. I assume they'll number the next series as Volume 2 and all that, and that's just how they're going to do it, interlocking miniseries. So I'm just sticking those away there. The other thing I do just want to briefly mention is Spy Island, a Bermuda Triangle mystery. I can never quite get where the camera is supposed to be. I'm sorry, guys. This is by Chelsea Kane and Leah Martinique. It's a really hard book to encapsulate. It is a spy story, but it's also a kind of supernatural fantasy action book about a spy who is on, you know, the proverbial one last mission, except that she's on an island in the Bermuda Triangle where supernatural creatures and all kinds of weird shenanigans are happening. It's a tough one because if you say too much, it ruins the book. Right. It is bizarre. I mean, the stuff in there is so kind of weird. So Chelsea Kane, you know, coming off
Man-Eaters,
thank you, and then did this next for Dark Horse. It's definitely worth picking up if you are a fan of the kind of more esoteric corners of modern comics. In fact, I think, Liz, you'd probably dig this because there is a kind of quasi-Silver Agey Umbrella Academy vibe to it.
Okay.
Only it's a lot more violent.
Right.
So definitely worth picking up. I don't want to say too much. What I would like is you guys just to trust me and go and pick this up from your local comic book shop.
And will you get your sort of like twist in issue 1?
Yes, there are twists all over it. The style in itself is a bit of a twist because it kind of starts playing off as one thing and then becomes another. It's very funny.
Okay.
You know, I think there's a really sharp wit to it, and it makes me wish I'd kind of read Chelsea Kane's Mockingbird stuff when that was out from Marvel, but that completely passed me by, unfortunately. I will say, go and pick that up. It's from Dark Horse. Do kind of maybe hit us up in the comments when you've read it, if you read it. As with anything, hit us up in the comments. Talk to us about how you're feeling about the books. Did we get it wrong? Did we get it right?
And also, like, we're definitely open to suggestion in terms of, things that are coming up that, you'd be interested in hearing reviews of. We both get our weekly comics lists emailed to us from Gosh usually on a Monday, right?
Yeah, sort of between Saturday and Monday, they're usually ready.
Right.
I think, as with most comic stores, as we know from being at Orbital, it's when your invoice comes through from Diamond that you can put up the list because you know what you're going to get.
Right.
They're usually pretty kind of on the spot with that list, though. So tell us what you'd like us to take a look at. I think we prefer to kind of do first issues and series starters.
Also if it's like kind of some really big important issue, like a first appearance of a character that we know is going to be important, or there's something significant about a particular issue of something, it doesn't have to be an issue 1. It just usually plays out that way because, people generally just kind of want to know whether something's going to be worth picking up or not.
Yeah. It's a kind of a weird time at the moment with new comics, where a lot of shops have had to kind of cut down their orders. It's actually getting tougher and tougher to buy stuff like even day one.
Right. Because they've readjusted them so far back that now that people are getting a little braver and coming out to the shops again, it's like, there's not enough stock.
Yeah, and you do have to add to that kind of speculator fury as well. Like there's a lot of that happening as always, which is not necessarily something I'm against, but if you just want to read something, it makes it kind of difficult. So I'm going to suggest to you guys that if you want to get comics on a weekly basis, always take a look at previews. In fact, if you sign up to the Patreon on the Comic Crush, I do like a monthly list, which I'm a bit behind on at the moment. Sorry, Patreon guys. I hope to have that all finished up by the weekend. I think I say that every week. But there's a lot of previews to go through. It's kind of a 500-page catalogue, so just cut me some slack. But yeah, we do that as one of the Patreon tiers. So you get a list emailed out to you every month of what's coming up and what I think you should be maybe taking a look at. And again, usually first issues or complete trades. There's a lot more on the Patreon. There's a lot more coming. But yeah, Spy Island.
And now to round it off, Paul, we're going to talk about one of the most exciting bits of my week, which is the 2 Loki trailers that came out.
So if anyone doesn't know, Liz's Tom Hiddleston thirst is, I mean, if it was an object, you'd be able to see it from space. It's it's like the Great Wall of Thirst. Loki is probably one of Liz's favorite characters in the history of comics.
Yeah.
Liz, how did that? I've got to know. How did that start for you? Was it just from reading Journey into Mystery, Kieran Gillen stuff, or?
No. It was like, I think the first Thor that I got into was the Straczynski Thor,
right?
Where Loki is like Lady Loki, and throughout the series, you get Lady Loki, you get sort of full-fledged, grown man villain Loki. And then Kieran Gillen took over, sort of writing duties from Straczynski, and that brings you to Kid Loki, and that's where the Journey into Mystery stuff starts to happen. And that is like, I was just like, what is going, obviously I've since gone back and read a lot of stuff that came before, like the Walt Simonson run is one of my absolute favorite things ever. And, that's from the 80s. And, I've read, issues from the 60s, 70s, I've kind of gone back and filled in all these gaps, but that starting point, with, sort of from Straczynski to Gillen, is what made me fall in love with the character. And then of course the Thor movie came out and I was like, well, he's dreamy. And so that helped.
You're like a housewife from the 50s. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then I just think he's like the best character. I just think he's like, because he is just, you can never trust anything he says or does. And you want to root for him, but you also know that he would stab you in the back at the first opportunity if it served his needs.
Sounds like ideal first date material, Liz.
Well, yeah, I know how to pick them, but yeah, I mean, he endures as possibly my favorite Marvel character. Quite possibly.
Okay. Yeah, and the weird thing is I have not read a lot of comics with Loki in or a lot of Loki comics. I'm hoping to kind of correct that before the series hits on June 9th. In fact, I've got Journey into Mystery to look forward to, and some of the Straczynski Thor and Siege. I don't know, is he part of that?
Yes, Siege is a big, so that was like an event book that is quite important if you're reading Journey into Mystery, like it precedes Journey into Mystery, and it is where well, I don't want to give too much away, but it's like it's how he goes from being Loki to Kid Loki.
Right, cool.
So it's worth a read anyway. I liked Siege. It's kind of like,
I'm gonna try. I've even picked up some of the kind of Simonson Thor as well.
It's great.
Like the 2 volumes of that. So I'm looking forward to doing a big Thor diving. Never a character I've been into in comics, I've got to be honest.
I can almost see it being in a way like Wonder Woman or something, where I find Wonder Woman kind of impenetrable.
Do you know what I think it is?
Get into the world of it.
Yeah.
And then if you're into the world of Thor, it's like you're really in, and it's really like, there's so many amazing Thor books, but I can see people being kind of put off by like, oh, okay, well, Asgard, space Vikings, like who are all these characters, Norse mythology, what's going on? It's like, it's actually really not complicated. You just have to get into it. You just have to find the book that hooks you in. And for me, it was like the Straczynski book, which I really, really liked a lot. And I think that you would find that very easy to read. A lot of the first Thor movie draws from that, actually.
Right.
Because that's the one where Asgard is sort of like hovering over like, some like little bumpkin town in Oklahoma. And they kind of borrowed, that for Thor 1, where, it's not necessarily Asgard is hovering over it, but he has to go down there and live amongst these like, simple town folk. And so, yeah, it's a really fun read, and it's only a couple of volumes. There's like 3 volumes, and then it segues into Kieran Gillen's run.
I think I've got the first 2. I haven't got the third, but I'll kind of make do. And I've got most of Journey into Mystery. I can kind of fill in the blanks, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I've said this. I will bang on about this book for the rest of time. But when you get to that bit of the story, the Journey into Mystery Loki series, where it's Kid Loki, that is just like the creme de la creme. It is like, one of my all-time favorite series. It's amazing.
Just we do need to move on to the sorry, I took you on a bit of an odyssey there. I probably should have asked.
Well, you got your answer. But let's just quickly talk about these trailers. We got another 2 little teaser trailers that I enjoyed very much. We had one that was called Miss Minutes. If you,
I really enjoyed.
Yeah, if you go onto YouTube, I mean, that was very like all of these Loki trailers. Just it looks hilarious.
And obviously, I do have to say, guys, if you are one of those people who avoids trailers and teasers and all that kind of stuff, close your ears, turn the volume down. I'll try and give you a thumbs up when we stop talking about Loki and those trailers. So the Miss Minutes one I absolutely adored, because primarily for that moment where he's kind of full of bravado and he's just like, you're not going to do anything, and they literally just disintegrate the guy in front of him. It was just like, oh. So obviously he has to kind of it's a weird thing, because he is, despite having all this power and ability, he is a complete coward.
Well, he's not necessarily a coward, but he's a self-preservationalist, like the nth degree. So he's like, whatever is gonna like serve him and like, get him out unscathed is what he will do. So he will suck up to anyone. He will like, he will. His loyalty is extremely flexible. And so, but only on the surface, because his loyalty is always, to himself, regardless of anything. And occasionally to Thor or his father, but really,
I could kind of see where you identify with him, actually.
I just find him inspiring.
A brunette character who's full of self-absorption. No, I'm just kidding, guys. I am just kidding. We are, but yeah, and of course we've had the Loki in 30 seconds trailer, which was great as well.
Yeah, which was also great. Like, you know,
Exactly.
and like, yeah, I mean, you know, if you have been like living under a rock for the last 10 years and haven't heard of Loki, like, you know, this will catch you up.
Yeah, and of course I'm really looking forward to the show because not least of all to answer that question, where did Loki go after he grabbed the Tesseract? And of course, as you've pointed out before on one of our shows, we are dealing with the Loki of
2012
Avengers. 2012. We're not the guy who's gone on this kind of journey of self-awareness
with his brother and of like, you know, self-sacrifice and all of that, like the sort of heroic Loki that, you know, we got by the end of by the end of Thor Ragnarok and into like the first few minutes of Infinity War. No, this is like the Loki who literally just was like in shackles after setting loose the Chitauri on Earth.
It'll be interesting to see if he can go on that same journey again without the same instances. I think he will. I think people are kind of interested in seeing this sort of good / bad Loki rather than just the bad Loki. Apparently, like when the first movie ended, first Thor movie, like Hiddleston didn't have any idea how popular the character had become. And in fact, even Marvel weren't really aware of how popular the character had become. So it's kind of interesting watching that change over the last sort of few years or so, last 10 years. Yeah, I mean, great trailers. They keep pumping them out. I wish they'd kind of stop away because every day I have to put up a new goddamn trailer on the website.
This might be it. I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, you know, I wonder if they're trying to experiment and do sort of like what Ryan Reynolds did with Deadpool, you know, like that sort of like super successful marketing campaign of like, you know, him just dropping hilarious trailer after trailer. And you know, and all that. So I don't know. Maybe that's what they're going for because they certainly didn't do this much with Falcon and Winter Soldier or WandaVision.
There were promos every week for Falcon and Winter Soldier, but they were a lot more straightforward.
Right.
One of the interesting things about the Loki stuff is if you look at it carefully, it's all from the beginning of the show. So they are really keeping what happens a secret.
Right.
This looks like all stuff from the first episode to me. You know, just taking a guess from what we know about storytelling and what we've seen before in the trailers. I think this is all early episode stuff, so they're not really revealing anything.
No.
But they are. But we've at least got the pitch for the show. I'm really looking forward to it. That's coming soon. One last thing I do want to mention before we get out of here. Two last things, in fact. There's one more thing at the end. So V for Vendetta, I'm sure you all know this book from Alan Moore and David Lloyd. Right now at the Cartoon Museum in London, in Wells Street, there is an exhibition of David Lloyd's original artwork and a lot of the kind of wonderful artifacts from V for Vendetta. I got to go along and take a, you know, very carefully socially distanced sneak peek at the exhibition before the museum opened. I've got a few nice shots which I'm hoping to put up on the website along with a review of it next week. But that exhibition's open right now. I will put the link in the description of this video when this goes out. So do take a look at that exhibition if you've got any kind of interest in David Lloyd's artwork. Which for this, I mean, this is one of my favorite things. Probably my favorite Alan Moore work, V for Vendetta. Certainly the one I've read the most times. I mean, I think I must have read it like 6 or 8 times now over the years. I actually adore it. My copy is signed by and it's got a sketch by. I don't know if you guys can see this. That's
I have a similar sketch in my copy.
David Lloyd.
My copy is only signed by David Lloyd.
Moore.
And Alan Moore signed my Watchmen, but
Yeah, Alan Moore very kindly signed this for me when he did the Lost Girls talk way back with Stuart Lee. I'm not sure about his feelings about signing this stuff now. I don't. I really think he's kind of keen to do that. But I've always kept that edition. It is a bit tatty now, though, and I was thinking that I really have to replace it.
Oh, come on, man! It's signed by both.
No. I'm going to keep it, but I mean, I in terms of
I want
to read again and again.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sure pick up another copy. Why not?
And in fact, you'll be able to pick up copies at the Cartoon Museum. Do take a look at the exhibition; it is amazing. I will have a full report on it. I think early next week or over the weekend on the comiccrush.com. We are hoping to have a section on this show starting next week called Quiz Liz, where you'll be able to ask Liz a question about comics, anything you like, really. But comics or comic book movies, and Liz will valiantly attempt to answer that. I always find you to be a font of knowledge about this stuff, Liz. Especially where it comes to Marvel, which I will always hold my hands up and say I do not know enough Marvel stuff. So if you've got a question you've always wanted to ask about a particular run of comics, should we say modern age stuff?
Sure, yeah. Let's say modern age stuff. But yes, I welcome all sorts of questions about my opinions on any sort of comic trivia.
Do shoot us a question in the comments if you can, or you can email paul@thecomiccrush.com. And
otherwise Paul will just ask me questions.
I'll probably like what? Come on, Liz. Jesus.
You do anyway, so.
That's in the context of, what we're talking about, though. You want me to ask other questions on top of that? What am I, a host? But no, we really look forward to doing more of these. We're going to do 3 episodes of this show. Then we're going to stop and do our Loki after show, and then come back. I think that's only going to be 6 episodes, so we'll do 6 weeks of that, 3 weeks of this, 6 weeks of that. Then we're back into this show right up until the next Marvel series starts.
Or like at least the next Marvel film, because I think we'll probably
we'll take odd, a week off.
To do Black Widow or Shang Chi or whatever else comes up.
So next week we'll be doing more comics. Also this weekend, in addition to this show, at least I think I'll probably put it up this weekend. We'll see how we go. We'll have myself and Nikki talking about Jupiter's Legacy and Invincible all in the one show. We've kind of watched both of those. We've saved it up. We're going to do one big bumper episode covering those two, because those series are kind of connected in ways that we'll discuss. So we'll be talking about comics and TV shows for those 2 particular titles. On From Panels to Pictures next week. Liz and I will be back next weekend to do this again. It'll be interesting to see what's coming out next week. I don't know yet.
I don't know yet, but I will look forward to finding out and discussing some comics. Please do, if you're out there listening, send us suggestions. Otherwise, we'll just pick what we want to pick. So.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of roll the dice on a bunch of things. Liz, it has been a pleasure as always. Folks at home, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on, having you watch. You're the reason we do this. Do check out the Patreon. Do follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Comic Crush. Find us on Facebook, The Comic Crush page on there. We have a web store as well. That and the Patreon all helps us keep going. So we would love you to take a look at that. And we'll catch you next time on The Crush. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.